Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there was a kind and beautiful princess named Snow White. She had skin as white as snow, lips as red as roses, and hair as black as coal. But Snow White lived with her stepmother, the queen, who was beautiful on the outside, but jealous and cruel on the inside. Now, the queen loved admiring her reflection. She had a magical mirror that hung on her bedroom wall. Every day, she would ask it, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror would always answer, "You, my queen, are the fairest of them all." This made the queen smile, for she loved being the most admired in the kingdom. But as Snow White grew older, her beauty began to shine even brighter. Now, one day, the queen asked her mirror, "Who is the fairest of them all?" And this time the mirror replied, "Snow White is the fairest of them all." The queen was furious. She could not bear the thought of anyone being more beautiful than her. "Find Snow White," she demanded of the mirror, "and bring her here right away." But the mirror shook its head. "I can't do that, my queen. You know that I only answer your questions honestly. And Snow White is hiding in the forest. She is very clever and cannot be found." The queen paced back and forth, thinking what to do. Then a wicked plan came to her mind. She called the royal huntsman, her most trusted servant, and ordered, "Take Snow White deep into the forest and never bring her back. Bring me back proof that you have killed her. If you don't, you will face the same fate as she will." The huntsman shuddered, for he knew the queen would keep her word. Though Snow White was very nice to him, he had no choice but to follow the queen's orders. He led Snow White far into the woods, but when he looked into her kind, gentle eyes, he could not do her harm. "Please, your highness," he said, kneeling before her. "I am sorry, but the queen has commanded me to bring you back as proof that I have killed you. But I could never hurt you." Snow White nodded understandingly. She knew that the queen wanted her dead because of her beauty. She also knew that the huntsman was kind and would never hurt her. "Then don't worry about me," she said kindly. "Just tell the queen that I am dead. Tell her that you brought me back as proof that I was slain. And please, take these jewels," she added, holding out a necklace and bracelet. "And tell the queen that these are all that remain of Snow White." The huntsman took the jewels, thanked Snow White for her kindness, and then went back to the castle. Meanwhile, Snow White ran through the forest, dodging trees and stumbling over roots. She was frightened and alone. Just as the sun began to set, she found a tiny cottage hidden among the trees. She knocked softly. No one answered. She stepped inside and saw 7 little chairs, 7 little bowls, and 7 tiny beds. Tired from running, she lay down across the beds and soon fell fast asleep. As evening fell, the cottage became dark and stormy. The wind howled and the thunder clapped, but Snow White slept peacefully. That evening, the owners of the cottage returned. They were 7 dwarfs who worked in the mountains digging for gems. When they saw Snow White, they gathered around. "Who is this girl?" asked one. "She looks tired," said another. "Let's not scare her. Maybe she needs help," said Jolly, the happiest of the 7. Snow White woke up and gasped, but the dwarfs were kind. She told them her story, and their faces turned serious. "Oh my goodness," said Doc, the smartest of the 7. "I'm sure that your stepmother is looking for you. She wants you dead because she is too jealous to admit that you are more beautiful than she is." Snow White nodded sadly. "So what should I do?" she asked. "Stay with us," said Grumble, the gruffest one. "But the queen may come looking for you," warned Wise, the oldest. "I'll be careful," Snow White promised. And so she stayed with the dwarves, helping with chores and making the cottage feel like home. They became like a family. Meanwhile, the queen paced anxiously in her castle, waiting for the huntsman to return with proof that Snow White was dead. Finally, he entered the room, holding her necklace and bracelet. "There," he said, dropping the jewels on the floor. "The rest of Snow White is now nothing but dust, I assure you." The queen picked up the jewels and examined them closely. "Very well," she said, "I believe you. But I want to make certain that Snow White is truly dead. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror replied, "Snow White, who lives with the 7 dwarves, is the fairest of them all." The queen was enraged. She used dark magic to disguise herself as an old woman. She made a shiny red apple and filled it with a terrible sleeping spell. And then, dressed in her disguise, the queen traveled to the cottage and knocked on the door. "Hello, dear," she said sweetly. "Would you like to try a special apple? It's the sweetest one you'll ever taste." Snow White hesitated, but the woman seemed harmless, and the apple looked delicious. She took one small bite and immediately fell to the floor, lying still and silent. The queen laughed wickedly and disappeared into the woods. When the dwarfs returned home, they found Snow White lying still and silent. "Oh my goodness," cried Doc. "What has happened to her?" They gathered around her, trying everything to wake her. "Don't lose hope," said Jolly. "We must first be certain that she is truly dead." So Wise climbed up onto a chair and peered into Snow White's mouth. "I'm afraid she is dead," he said sadly. "But we should lay her in a glass case filled with soft flowers and place it deep in the forest. Maybe one day, a prince will find her and awaken her with a kiss." And so they did, just as Wise suggested. They gently laid her in a glass case filled with soft flowers and placed it deep in the forest. They stayed near her, always hoping she would wake. One day, a prince rode through the woods and saw her. He had heard of her kindness and beauty. When he saw her face, his heart filled with sadness. He dismounted from his horse, walked to the glass case, and gently kissed her forehead. Suddenly, Snow White's eyes fluttered open. The spell was broken. The dwarfs jumped and cheered. Snow White smiled at them, then at the prince. "Come with me," said the prince. "You'll be safe in my castle, and never afraid again." Snow White hugged each of the dwarves. "I'll never forget you," she said with happy tears. She left with the prince to live a joyful life, but often returned to visit the 7 little friends who had given her love and safety when she needed it most. As for the evil queen, when she learned that Snow White still lived, her anger grew so hot that it shattered her magic forever. She vanished, never to return. And so Snow White lived happily ever after, always remembering that kindness, courage, and true friends are the most powerful magic of all. Moral of the story: kindness, courage, and the love of good friends can help you overcome any obstacle. Snow White's kind heart and gentle spirit helped her through tough times, and with the help of her friends, she triumphed over evil. The story also teaches us that true beauty comes from within, and that love and goodness will always prevail in the end. Follow-up questions: why did the queen become so jealous of Snow White? How did the dwarfs show kindness to Snow White? What do you think is more important, being beautiful or being kind? Why?